Hello, Kurt.
Okay. Hi. Let me just take this opportunity to welcome everyone, both the University of Cape Town community and also members of the public, parents who may be joining us at this live stream. I just need to say at the start that this is the first time the Michaelis School of Fine Art has deployed a virtual showcase for the graduate show. And if the pandemic ends up getting any worse, it may not be the last time we move to a virtual showcase platform. Be that as it may, I think we're very proud of what we've achieved in this innovative use of technology and curation. And on that note, I need to thank Ms. Nkule Mabasa, who's the Michaelis Gallery curator, and Mr. Malvin Pather, who is the Chief Technical Officer. And between the two of them, the teamwork that was enacted really resulted in this great innovation that I think you will experience both now and in the days to come. I would also like to thank the Michaelis 2020 catalog group. The sterling work is visible as a digital download also on this platform, the Michaelis website. And also to thank the virtual showcase committee who met every Thursday to make sure that all of these moving parts work together. And again, as you will experience in the sessions and the discussions in the days to come. I also need to say that 2020 was in fact the final year of the directorship of Associate Professor Bernie Sill, but she assures me that her thoughts are well captured in the foreword that she authored for the catalogue. I think the students asked me to be present because I've got quite an intimate knowledge of their projects, having been responsible for grading many of their final year theoretical essays. And so I thought I would just offer a couple of insights that perhaps the class of 2020 could use going forward as they develop their careers and their personal lives. And I think the key is really to say that every single staff member at Michaelis really support the idea of research, especially research in the humanities. But in 2020, towards the end of March, we were actually forced into an experiment against our will. And we knew instinctively that it was an experiment that was being repeated on an international level. And it was an experiment that was really forced by the conditions of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the question really that the experiment asked of us was, how does an art school function in the absence of an actual physical school? Indeed, how do we guide and train scholars in the absence of the artwork that they produced? In fact, how would we function in the absence of the actual students who would not be a physical presence? And this was a massive experiment that really, I think, brought out a number of diverse approaches and diverse views. And at the end of 2020, when we had graded all the final year exhibitions, and the external examiner provided a very, very positive report about the quality of the work despite the pandemic, as true academics, we all took the opportunity to reflect as a staff. I think it was a week after we had concluded the exams. And we realized that art school pedagogy, in other words, the science of teaching in an art school, is far from a closed matter. In fact, we realized it was something that was just beginning because of how the pandemic forced us to use different technologies and different protocols and in fact, different ways of interacting with students. And what we came up with, I would say in rough terms, are quite abstract, but I'm hoping that they would be very valuable as you reflect on your own journey in light of the estimation that we have as certain kinds of principles that were demonstrated during your journey of 2020. And the first principle really, which I think is the most important one in some ways, is that we realize that high quality imagination didn't really depend on cavernous libraries or the access to studios or advanced technology. what really sustained quality imagination, and not only sustained it, but in fact nourished it, was very intimate and very kind and respectful relationships. And these relationships seem to be the one thing that COVID could not forestall. They were the relationships that developed between students working together, between students and staff, and most crucially, between students and I would say their intimate others and their parents. And the reason why this is so important is because I would ask the class of 2020 to in fact reflect on the mechanics of these relationships, the value of them, how they sustained you, including the ups and downs over the 6 to 7 months that you were really in lockdown, and take those relationships with you. Don't neglect them, don't leave them behind, because they've proved their worth in 2020. The second principle that was demonstrated in our estimation that the COVID pandemic also foregrounded during the 2020 year was in fact that, you know, difficulties can sometimes be desirous. And I think what we mean by that is that when you see the work today or tomorrow, when you go to the virtual showcase rooms, and when we saw the work completed during the various examinations, we were astounded at the very ingenious ways and processes that students had deployed, processes and methodologies and materials that many staff felt would not be found any other way, save through a life-threatening pandemic, as incredulous as that sounds. And I think the key there is just to realize that in certain conditions, difficulties, when they're approached in the right way, bring out ingenious solutions. And again, this is in fact demonstrated not in my estimation alone, but in the work that you will see tonight in the virtual showcases and in the catalog. And the final principle is really that ultimately burdens can honor those who are able to stand up under their weight. And what we mean by that is that we've got a large student body, and each individual encountered different challenges. For some individuals, it was the challenge of having up to 6 people in one home. For some individuals, it was dealing with a toddler, in addition to dealing with unsympathetic parents. For some individuals, it was problems that related to finances, problems that related to access to resources. And yet we are gathered here tonight precisely to doubly honor the class of 2020 who stood up under those burdens and now must look back, I beseech you, not as victims of 2020, but in fact as people that stood up under those burdens and then justly received the honor that we afford you as staff, and I'm sure as a viewing public tonight because of the exceptional work achieved. It's very important before we, I think, move over to the keynote speaker, because I promised all of the staff I'd be very brief because I'm programmed to lecture for 50 minutes. Before we do that, we must also just acknowledge those who could not be here tonight. 2020 was a deadly year, and we lost colleagues in the broader university. We lost colleagues who frequented our campus. We have staff members who lost both parents. We have students that had lost grandmothers and fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters. So before I hand over to our keynote speaker, I wonder if we couldn't just have a moment of silence just to mark the deadly year that 2020 was, but as soon as possible to speak again about life through the keynote speaker and through the prize giving. So just a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And before I hand over to our keynote speaker, just to remind the viewing public that the student profiles include a virtual exhibition that will allow you to navigate. And the more you view the work, the easier it is to navigate the dashboard. It includes the essay that's directly related to the student that you are looking at in terms of their profile, as well as the superb catalog. I'm very pleased to say that this discourse will go on beyond tonight. If you consult the program, where the students are clustered into specific thematics. And I'm very sure this is just evidence of how seriously our students take the scholarship that they've been very much a part of in 2020. Thank you very much. And if I could just ask our keynote speaker to engage. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thanks so much for that, Kurt. Can everybody hear me? Good evening to everybody. I'm very glad and very honored to have been asked to speak at tonight's event. And also a little bit nervous because I'm fairly new. I arrived at Michaelis at the end of 2019, and in 2020, it was my first official year as the print technician. So looking back now, I also realized just how strange and surreal that year was. We just got started, and then the COVID pandemic hit with lockdown, and there was no access to campus, which meant many had to adjust to different ways of producing art. And students also weren't able to use the accessories or the tools which studio space afforded them. Online teaching started obviously as a way to keep the ball rolling, and we had to adapt to all the conditions. Sorry, I'm going to slow down a bit because I'm nervous. So personally, I started making some how-to videos for the students, mostly those studying in print media, and also had to reinvestigate the ways one could print at home. There was definitely an air of uncertainty with a slight do-or-die aspect, but I think everybody involved, students and staff together, knew that we were in this together and we had to do the best we could to keep the ship afloat. And once the students returned in October, there was definitely an influx of creatives, all eager, willing, and driven. So working with some of the fourth years made me also realize just how much they had to stay on target while doing distant learning, as it takes a lot of self-discipline, and they were surprisingly well prepared for the last few months of the year in studio and able to complete their artwork successfully. Definitely when they returned, everybody was working together, and they had, as Kurt also said, had ingenious ways of producing new art and adjusting to the conditions. So that was really something that I could see very much abroad. And I also had the privilege of seeing many of the actual NTA exhibitions on campus and seeing the real artwork in front of me, which, as we all know, is quite a privilege to have. But Michaelis did so much to adjust to the new online sphere, recording these 3D spaces and making one feel you are there in person. So to the 2020 graduates, I would just like to say, you have seen the best of times, you have seen the worst of times, but you have made it through these times much stronger on the other side. Your drive and not letting the year get you under is really to be respected and admired. You're also the very first to have an online exhibition and workshops with new possibilities as you're paving the way for the future. The work you produced are very strong, significant, and bold, and you should all congratulate yourself for making the best of the year. I would like to take this time to give you a little quote as I end my speech. You can do anything as long as you have the passion, the drive, and the support. And I think you have all proven that you have had the passion, the drive, and support throughout this year. It has been really good to see how you have adapted to the year and that you had not stopped and made the best of everything. I would love to introduce Tara to you next. She is the photographic technician, and she will give you an account of what has been like in 2020.
Thank you, Michaelis. I too am feeling very honored to be speaking tonight, so thank you for asking me. Hi, everyone. I first of all would like to congratulate the class of 2020 for getting through the year. I'm in awe of the work that was produced during this time, but I'm not surprised by the high quality of it. I'm not surprised because you had two elements that helped you get here: the talent, dedication, and resilience in yourselves, and the constant support from the staff at Michaelis. From your experienced and patient lecturers to the security who came to campus every day during a pandemic, the librarians, the technicians, cleaners, landscapers, and support staff. Together, we adapted like chameleons to our new environment. Some took longer to change color, but we got there. When lockdown was implemented, it was remarkable to see how quickly both staff and students adapted. Lecturers were changing courses that required dark rooms and sculpture studios, print presses and computer software. They were figuring out ways to critique and guide art making over a screen. Laptops and data were being rolled out quickly. Students were figuring out how to turn their bedrooms into studios, navigating different living situations and family dynamics, while juggling a whole degree and keeping safe during the pandemic. A big obstacle students faced was materials. Suddenly, everyone was made to think on a much smaller scale. They had to look around them for materials, many using recycled medium and found objects. Everything was still, and there was time for introspection. During this time, when I wasn't teaching, I was making art. I had moved all of my materials from studio to my house. Luckily, it was easy for me to downscale my practice as I collage with found photographs and make videos on small sets. In my work, I look at home and the domestic space and explore my memories of constantly moving house as a child due to evictions. Because the subconscious plays such a big part in my collage making, I couldn't help but weave in what was happening around me into my art. I thought about how this would affect the students, how they too would be considering the events around them, and how this would impact the themes and materiality of their work. I was finding it difficult to use the right words to reach out to friends, colleagues, students, and artists to encourage them to keep on making during this uncertain time. So I did what any 29-year-old would do. I turned to Instagram. I created a collage challenge and asked people to look around them and be inspired by the waste materials in their kitchen or bedrooms, the magazines or newspapers they had lying around, the old photographs gathering dust, and to make an artwork with this. There was no pressure to have it be about anything specific. The important part was that they were still making. I asked them to tag me in their collage and I shared everyone's progress. I found this support system and accountability and encouragement very similar to that of the community at Michaelis. I started studying at Michaelis in 2011 and kind of never left. If I have learned anything from this time, it's that as soon as you carry on trying, despite failure, you will eventually get to where you need to be. So please, don't stop making, even if it's just a banana bread or a collage made out of an old toothpaste box. If you feel lost without the guidance of your lecturers, turn to your contemporaries and the friends you have made in your class. You have overcome many obstacles. You have amazing life skills. Use them. Thank you. Okay, I think it's over to a student now.
Over to the student representative.
Hi, everyone. That's me. Okay, I'll just jump right in. Tonight, I'm just going to basically be reading some statements from my peers. All right. So the first one's from Sinead Mason. Incidentally, she played a big role in organizing the grad show. So thank you to Sinead for all of her work, as well as a statement. Good evening. I find myself reflecting on what a surreal moment it is to compose a short comment to be read by a classmate online, almost as if it were a scribbling on a collective birthday card. Like all birthday wishes that cannot hope to express the closeness one feels to another, this statement cannot hold all the experience of the previous 4 years. This feeling of limitation is only heightened by our current virtual situation, which presents us with an entirely new landscape to engage with. And how can we begin to marry the virtual with the material when they appear entirely incompatible? As I'm sure many of us have experienced, our world has simultaneously expanded and also shrunk significantly due to the pandemic. The art world, into which us graduates are about to step into, is transforming entirely. But if one thing is certain, this cohort of 2020 Michaelis will always rise to the occasion. Congratulations to all my peers who metaphorically stand beside me in this graduate show. We have worked under immense pressure and stress, and we deserve this so much more. And so much more. All right, next statement is from Hannah McFarlane. Starting during protests and ending in a pandemic, the 4 years of our degree have definitely been memorable. Though tumultuous and challenging, deep connections were made through vulnerability and camaraderie. While there were many times of near breaking, The insight and knowledge gained through intensive self-reflection and understanding oneself within this world is irreplaceable. I am not the same. I now know myself, the positive, negative, and endless spaces in between. From here, we can continue to grow, learn, and create. All right, next is Diana Vives. That's one of our PG DIP students. Okay, it was an important year, a dream that took a deep dive of historical proportions. Begun on the set of a beautiful campus with studios and colleagues and all the props, continued in spaces of physical and mental confinement. With few distractions, time was long and slow. But as I paced the inner world in search of large and often silent thoughts, at times elated, often doubting, I never felt completely alone because there were moorings in the work. And throughout the making, a connection to others. I have much gratitude to my supervisors and to those that held the institution together for us. The valuable structure that it offers is not made of bricks and mortar, but of critical experience, exacting standards, perhaps a healthy indifference to you as a person, but certainly an interest in valuable contributions. It is also a space for possible encounters which otherwise could not have happened. I made some true friends. And I look back on those 2-hour Zoom crits that had an awkward intimacy about them, a bit like being stuck in an elevator with strangers whose voices and stories you will remember. I am proud of my colleagues for what they achieved. As artists, we were among the vocations that worked throughout the year 2020. All right, next is Kaylin Munsami. Hailing from an ephemeral background, diving straight into the ephemeral was one of the most challenging yet empowering things I had ever done. After spending a total of 6 years at the Michaelis School of Fine Art, due to numerous challenges of residency, alienation, colorism, and racism among students at the University of Cape Town, I had learned by observation and interaction the dynamics of different personalities, backgrounds, and sensitivities involved in a tertiary institution. I certainly believe that this empowering experience will be greatly beneficial to my future as a professional fine artist. I have been honored by prominent members of staff at the school, namely Jane Alexander, Bernie Searle, Fabian Saptow, Stanley Amen, Afifa Rajab, just to name a few. In my final year at Michaelis, I was blessed with the opportunity of having Jane Alexander as my supervisor due to the power of her works, which continue to inspire me. In earlier years, I have fond memories of borrowing an eagle skull from Pippa Scottness, as well as a taxidermy rat from Fritha Langerman for my stone lithography project. In my 3rd year, I was sculpting an almost 2-meter tall sculpture inside the Michaelis building. This sculpture was later exhibited in the garden of the hidden campus, as well as being taken apart to be put in the back of a van, symbolizing a chariot, in honor of the divine Black feminine, as part of the city intervention project. As an exercise of trust, an exercise of walking blindfolded through the city guided by a colleague was ironically eye-opening to the possibilities of working with other artists. Meditating in the Bertram House garden, along with my first live art performance, has led to my exhibition, Kali, the Black Liberator. My first live art performance was done at Michaelis twice, to an audience of my colleagues, as well as the public as part of the performance art project. My time at Michaelis was extraordinary, exciting, unpredictable, rewarding, intellectual, and difficult. After years of blood, sweat, and tears, I have learned an abundance of knowledge of the history of art and the practice of art in almost all of the mediums Michaelis had to offer. Thank you. All right, next is Miro van der Vloot. How does one spread 4 years of life thinly over the span of a paragraph? Like viscous honey, my memory is imbued with the joys, losses, fun, and frustrations that I'll bottle and keep on a shelf to eat with nostalgia when the time comes. 4 years over 4 sentences seems fair. The friends who've added the amber tint to my memories of art school, I will forever be grateful. The patience I've gained contending with swarms beyond my control. My mind nourished by mentors of all ages, their knowledge filling up countless scribbled pages. Yes, this palimpsest of experience will collect its precious dust, an experience shared, yet lies buried within each of us. Next is a statement from Tanya Milner. I'm saying goodbye to my art studio, where I had so many fond memories of making art and group discussion and me being here as a student on campus. I have been making a series of artworks of circles going round and round and round. You've wondered why. Excuse the pun, I'm closing one circle of life into a new circle of life. I got overwhelmed with emotions leaving. Leaving is so hard to do. We meet people in places, and like the seasons, winter, summer, autumn, spring, people come and go from our lives. The only constant thing is the unconditional love we have for each other, that one carries forth wherever one goes. UCT has given back to me so much over this period of time. It's given me a roof over my head to weather the storms and rains. It's given me sunshine that's brought me smiles and laughter that I so much like to do, finding the funny side of everything. It's given me security to check on me. And even though it's their job, they gave me words of encouragement. Their words were much appreciated at the time. I received knowledge and came into my maturity, growing from a student into a teacher and artist from the wisdom of my lecturers, the books I've read and the essays I have written until late in the night. God brings forth into one's life teachers so one may learn the right way. Stanley and his wife have fed me food when I was hungry and fed me the spiritual word of God in my heart that I was hungry for and did not know I was searching for at the time. I wanted to take this time now to say thank you to my teachers and my classmates, friends, my son Aaron, and family and mom for all your kind words and support that warmed my heart. I am thankful for your presence when you were needed. I really appreciate your help. Blessings and gratitude to you, the people who are loving and kind to me, for the sunshine you bring into my life. May your own seeds blossom into flowers. Warmest regards, Tanya Milner. Okay, next is Cole May. It has been a valuable 4 years at Michaelis. The experiences challenged me, taking me out of my comfort zone academically, socially, and artistically. I come away knowing I grew tremendously in so many ways, and life is only beginning. The art was fun, more so interesting, but I especially cherished the relationships I was able to form and people I was privileged to meet. I was exposed to exceptional and talented individuals throughout my schooling at Michaelis. I will miss seeing their faces on a regular basis. I wish my classmates nothing but the best and for them to keep on keeping on. All right. Now we have a poem from Nicola Hattinger. So the end of the beginning eclipses once again, having gone everywhere yet nowhere from the start to the end. Filled up with moments, all manner and shape, the time has trickled out, leaving one more step to take. Into more unknowns, perhaps just as bizarre as the last, a thing that was the future dissolves into the past. Now that the last slither of insight is important enough to say, don't lose your light to the stillness that has erupted along the way, for there will never be enough time to explain your mind away. So it's not worth giving up the pieces that got you through the decay of mind and of matter, of the systematics of thinking and becoming in a space of confusion and clatter. But I won't forget the other parts, amongst the bits in between that glowed from the inside out and showed themselves to gleam. It wasn't to be easy, it was there to be profound, even if sometimes it felt like my feet would never find their way back to the ground. So away we go. There it is, one last statement compressed into this. A great hurrah, the last goodbye. Perhaps now I might go off and fly. All right, I'll close with my own statement. I I just wanted to start by saying that I hope this email finds you well in these unprecedented times. Jokes aside, the circumstances of 2020 were trying at best. And though the works you will see tonight are born of and molded by the circumstances under which they were created, they are far from victims of circumstance. They are incredible triumphs. So too are the artists triumphant. We did it. So congratulations to the class of 2020. It has been a great honor to represent such a talented group of artists. Thank you to staff for your patience and guidance over the years. And thank you to all of you who have shown up to see us off. Enjoy the show.
Thank you very much, Misha. It was quite profound listening to all of the students that, that really seemed to be listening to what sustained them during that year. And what I also just want to say is that I'm quite a good detective, and I'm quite convinced that all of the students have got a secret venue where they're going to celebrate a bit later, and it wasn't offered to the to the staff. But jokes aside, we move now to the prize giving, and I'm always hesitant to read prizes or to award the prizes, because, as I was saying, to survive 2020 certainly means you were a champion. But these prizes have quite specific details or conditions, and they were awarded in discussion with all staff members except for one. And of course, in the current format, it's not possible to hear rapturous applause in a manner that's very palatable. So I'll just read them, and at the end of the prize giving, I think that would conclude this part of the virtual showcase, and I look forward to the discussions that will happen in the coming days. So as I said, it's probably going to work best if I just read it out, and you can imagine the rapturous applause. And as I was saying, it's very specific awards, but certainly every single student that made it through 2020 with such creative work is a champion. So the first prize, which we call the Simon Gerson Prize, which is awarded for an outstanding student or students, the following students were awarded this prize. And we'll start with Manku Ranji, Gemma Carrison, Sahla Davids, Ben Orkin, Miro van der Vloet, and Parker Donaldson. We then move to the Michaelis Prize, which is awarded annually to the most outstanding body of work produced by a student in any particular field. And this award goes to Mangu Ranji. We then move to the Judy Steinberg Prize, which is awarded in recognition of excellent work. And this award goes to Tanya Milner. We then move to the Katrien Harris Print Cabinet Prize. And this has been awarded to Emma Pretorius. The next prize, penultimate prize, the Matthew Summers Memorial Prize, is awarded to a student who shows promise, preferably in drawing and or printmaking. And this prize is awarded to Tato Makatu. And then finally, the Director's Award is awarded to Wanda Klaas. So I'm sure there's lots of cheering and rapturous applause. As I said, I'm quite convinced there's a secret location where students are going to celebrate, so please enjoy it and be safe. And I think this concludes this part of the virtual showcase. And I look forward to engaging with some of the discussions that happen. And as I said, the great novelty of this technology is that it will be available in terms of your catalog and your profiles for a year until the next group is ready. And I'd also just want to take this opportunity to thank every single member of the Michaelis team that had to juggle family life, WhatsApp, emails, Skype, heavy administrative loads, and in some cases redesigning whole courses so that it could actually function online. It may sound paternalistic, but we're exceptionally proud of the class of 2020. And as much as I think students are guided or trained by the scholars at Michaelis, there's so much I think we learn from students in terms of their tenacity, in terms of their answers to very difficult questions. So please understand that it's definitely something that is hard to explain when you've been through a year like 2020. Sometimes there's gifts that are still materializing as you reflect on the year. So thank you very much. All have a great evening and be safe. I look forward to the breakout sessions that happen late in the coming days. Thank you very much.